Hi all, Bethany here with ZR2 Girls over on Instagram, also on YouTube. Here to talk to you about the 2023 Colorado ZR2 Desert Boss Edition. Huge shout out to Chevy for allowing me to drive this for a week. It has been a great adventure. I'm coming from a 2018 Colorado ZR2. So I will compare this to what I feel mine was and what this is, what I think the upgrades are, what things I think they might have done a little bit better, which I will tell you there's only little itty bitty things because this thing is a beast. So let's go ahead and talk about all of the good things and all of the things that maybe could have done a little bit better. First question was, is it larger than the previous generation? I would say slightly. I don't feel it's a huge difference between the previous gen and this one. I will say there was a trail I went down that I know I went down in my 2018 that I did feel like this was not going to make it as good because it was a little bit wider. But overall, the interior feels the same. I would say the front space might feel slightly larger, but the actual physical space in the back I don't feel is any different, and the under seat storage is identical to those in the previous generations. As far as the turning radius goes, I think it's pretty comparable. I don't feel like it was any less or any more than the previous generation. So overall, I would say it's slightly larger, but nothing that is overly larger than the previous generations. Okay, so I think the biggest question that came up, it was in relation to the motor. Understandable, because it's the biggest change when it comes to the 2023 ZR2. So previous generations, you could get a gasser or you could get a diesel. There is no longer a diesel option in the 2023. I know that makes some of you guys very sad, and I'm sorry. But I had the gasser, so I had the 3.6 liter V6. It had 308 horsepower and 275 foot-pounds of torque. Now this is a 2.7 liter turbo inline 4-cylinder, and it has 310 horsepower and 430 foot-pounds of torque. Comparing the two has been a little difficult because my V6 was tuned with a trifecta tune. As far as the peppiness, my tuned V6 I would say was a lot more peppy than this is. Now when before it was tuned, I would say slightly more peppy than what this is. As far as the turbo lag on this guy, I actually timed it. It was 1.11 seconds. You definitely feel it. It throws you back. So you initially put it to the floor, and then about a second later, you get thrown back in your seat. It's pretty impressive. So I would say it has a minimal turbo lag. As far as how it drives, I feel like it drives great. I took it on some trails. I did a little bit of crawling, nothing huge. I've done highway, I've done city, and I would say it's pretty good. Now, the overall best on this truck for miles per gallon that it had listed, I want to say was somewhere around 20.8. It's got just over 3,200 miles on it. I'm seeing about 13.9. However, I've been testing the Baja mode, so I expected it to be a little less than what it will be average. I think your average is probably going to come in somewhere around 14.5 and 15.5. Overall, I do like it. So again, hard to compare between the V6 and then the turbo with the inline 4 because they are just so different. But overall, I think it will work great for what I use it for. So let's talk tires. So on the 23 Desert Boss, it comes standard with the 17-inch beadlock capable wheels. The tires are 285/70/17s, which is equivalent to a 33. They are the Territory MTs. I had them on some trails, did a little bit of crawling, nothing major at all. They did fine. Highway, they were fine. I did not notice them to be super noisy by any means. I had KO2s on mine. I would say they might be slightly noisier than those, but nothing really to write home about. Now these are only going to come standard on the Desert Boss on the 23. You cannot add them to a standard ZR2 on the 23, or you have to upgrade to the Desert Boss package. Now moving into the 24s, they do have a Bison. Those come with the AEV wheels. Those are also on 35s instead of 33s, which is a nice feature there. I know a lot of people that really want to go with those 35s. Now, could you fit 35s on the Desert Boss? Yes, but not without trimming. I did a little comparison onto the flares from the 24 the 24 Bison, and there is definitely less of the body that you can see above it. I would say maybe 1.5 inches just based off of the picture. So will 35s fit? Not as she sits without any type of rubbing. You probably will have to do some cutting. All right, so another one of the questions that was asked was if I ever considered the GMC version of the ZR2, which is the AT4X. And the answer is yes, I have. I looked into them. I wasn't able to get my eyes on one in person, but I did a lot of research. There was a SEMA build that was being done on a red one that was amazing, which is really what got me looking into those. However, the deal breaker for me on the AT4X would be the white interior. Now my kids are grown, but I do have a grandson and he's not the cleanest. And in general, you know, I'm in and out in the snow and mud, and the thought of white interior scared the crap out of me. So that is the only reason. The question, are there any improvements from the previous generations? Yes, there's lots of them. The ones that come to mind for me, they moved the wheelbase forward. You have a lot more ground clearance on top of the fact that you're sitting on 33s. The previous ones were, I think, comparable to maybe like a 31. So that I would say for sure is an improvement. The entire interior is an improvement. I'm not saying I didn't like the interior on the previous generations. I did like the storage space you had in the center portion of the vehicle on the previous generations. This one does have a little bit less. Toggling through the modes, the Baja mode, the terrain, the off-road, and the normal, those are super easy with the knob on the center console, so I did like that. Another upgrade for me, you have 120 volt in the bed, which is nice to have, in the Stow Flex tailgate. I really like that. I was looking at trying to change mine out, but I had the Mountain Hatch tailgate table and I didn't want to lose that either. So it's give or take on that one. The engine, if I'm being honest, I would prefer my V6. Just in the small amount of time that I've drove this. It doesn't mean that I don't like it. I do. It's just different. So it's hard to get used to something that is different. I also like the styling of this one. I love the lines. The side lines are a lot better, in my opinion, than the previous generations. The cameras, way better. The under-mounted body cameras are probably my favorite. I think that is a great option that they've put on this one. So my overall impression is that yes, there are many upgrades to the previous versions. Nothing that was not, or that was on my previous 2018, that's not on this one. There's so many more options on this one than I ever had on mine. So overall, yes, lots of improvements. All right, so the other question was, is there anything that is not improved on the 23 versus the previous generations? There are two things. I would say the fact that they did not put power seats on the passenger side is not an improvement. My passengers should be able to adjust their seat to their comfortable level. The actual seats themselves, now those are actually really comfortable, and I would say an improvement from the previous generations. But the fact that they didn't put power on the passenger side is a little bit disappointing, and I will be looking at seeing if I can add that if I go with a 2024. The other thing I'm not sure that was improved would be the engine. I'm not saying it's not good, I'm just saying it's not improved from the V6. I think, along with a lot of you, it's hard to wrap your head around a 4-cylinder. The turbo, I like. It's different. It's hard for me to compare the V6 to this because they are just so incredibly different. But as far as it being improved, I would say it's close to being about the same. But again, hard to compare the two because they are so different. And that's really it. I can't think of anything else that I don't feel that they improved on compared to the previous generations. All right, so my overall impression of the 23 Colorado ZR2 Desert Boss is, it's pretty badass. If I'm being honest, I'm pretty happy with everything. I love the exterior, the styling, the lines on it is super sexy in my opinion. Also, the interior is a huge upgrade. It just looks so much more sleek, so much nicer. I'm a huge camo fan, so they did me really good by putting all of that camo in there. I love it, and I'm probably going to add more than what's actually in there right now. It drives smooth. I've been on the highway, I've had it on some trails, I did a little bit of crawling, and overall it's smooth, it runs great. I didn't have any issues as far as the drivability of it. The torque lag is so minimal, it's like a second, so nothing major there. My overall impression is I'm gonna get a 24, but it's gonna be in blue. And the only reason it's not gonna be the Bison is because of the fact that you can't put the tire up underneath. And yes, I know you have other options. You can lay it down the bed. However, I use my bed a lot, and I don't wanna have to contend with that. And the other big thing is I need a tonneau cover, so the way they have it placed is just not gonna work for me. But do I love the Bison? Yes. Will I be putting a lot of the stuff that's on the Bison on mine when I get it? Yes. So again, overall impression, sold.